Hey, Reverend Tony here with a spiritual challenge for you for the month of January on the theme of liberating love. If you're up for the challenge, stick around. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the first spiritual challenge of 2024. Before I get into this month's challenge, just a reminder that if you haven't yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do so. If you're watching this on another format, please also like, follow, leave a comment, share this video with others. All that stuff really helps me out a lot, and I deeply appreciate it. Thank you. As we kick off the new year of 2024, my congregation is working with the theme of liberating love. So my challenge for you this month is to do an examination of conscience for lingering prejudices which get in the way of your more fully practicing liberating love. What am I talking about? Most good-hearted people know that they have certain prejudices and that our attitudes are formed by the culture around us, how we were raised, and so many other factors, and that we're not always aware of how we're exhibiting prejudicial behavior, opinions, ideas. So we try and keep track of that. And most good-hearted people are pretty good at realizing things about racism and homophobia and sexism. And we learn to unlearn the prejudices that we've accumulated or were taught or picked up subconsciously. We do our best to practice a liberating love of getting better and working for justice and improving all the things and conditions and attitudes that lead to those types of prejudices. But what I'm talking about are the ones that seem to lurk a little more underground. So this month, I want you to take a look at what might be your lingering undercover prejudices. And I'm going to suggest 3 topics to explore. One is fat and body image and body size. Another is education and intelligence. And another is poverty. So let's take a look at each of these. When you see someone who's overweight, do you sometimes think, oh, they'd be really good looking if they weren't so fat? Do you happen to think that being fat is a matter of willpower and lack of personal discipline because someone may not eat well enough regularly or exercise enough regularly? Do you know what causes obesity? Do you know that the body mass index, for example, is not necessarily a great way to measure health, even when dealing with weight? Take a look at some of those things. Do you harbor underground attitudes that think less of someone because of their body size, and what they look like, and their weight? Do you think that somebody might have a less stellar character because they've let themselves go and happen to weigh a lot? What do you feel about when you hear stories of people not being able to fit, say, on an airplane seat or a train seat? What do you think when there's no accommodations made for people who need a mobility scooter? What about when there's no elevators or escalators or some way for people who have a hard time with their mobility due to size to move up and down and around and get in and out of places? Take a little time this month and examine that attitude. What is your attitude about fat? I'm going to have some resources at the end of the video for a bunch of these. What about intelligence? People who tend to gravitate towards my religious tradition of Unitarian Universalism, and many other people who are themselves educated, think very highly, and I think rightly so, of being well-educated and well-read and well-versed in many things and having good bases of knowledge. I think that's a common human thing. But do we think less of people who aren't as intelligent as we are, or who have different intelligences than we do? If we're very book smart centered and are into written word, are we less appreciative of people who have kinesthetic intelligence or artistic intelligence? Do you sometimes finding yourself using the words such as retard or moron or idiot indiscriminately and wondering how those things might be heard by somebody else? Again, some more things to think about and resources at the end of the video. Another thing to examine this month is your attitudes towards poverty. Are people poor because of a lack of work ethic, discipline, skill, training? Or do we live in a system that makes it very difficult for people to actually change their economic level or strata as they progress through life? The overwhelming majority of people die in the economic and social strata into which they are born. Is the American dream everybody can achieve anything they want to if they work hard enough? Is that a reality? Or is that hampered by other factors that get in the way no matter how hard somebody works, how industrious they are, or how intelligent they are? What do you think when you see someone who is poor? What about people who are homeless? Poverty has wide-ranging implications, and just being poor requires a lifestyle in our culture, especially here in America, that makes just surviving an incredible amount of hard work. Finding resources, finding benefits, finding training, finding opportunity. And all of those things and the ability to access them are impacted by other prejudices and attitudes and society's norms, all of which may not be just or healthy. What do you think of poverty? Again, some more resources. Let's take a look at some resources for examining some of these attitudes and get you thinking a little more deeply. First of all, let's take a look at some recommended reading, some books on these different topics you might consider. Some books on fat liberation you might want to take a look at. You Just Need to Lose Weight and 19 Other Myths About Fat People by Aubrey Gordon, who also has another book I really like called What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat. Gordon also co-hosts Maintenance Phase, a podcast on this topic, and writes a blog on the topic Your Fat Friend. Another book's Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia by Sabrina Strings. And this takes a look at how a lot of our fat prejudices and fat phobias go way back to racism and dealing with the difference of the black body. Another book is Heavy, an American Memoir by Keith Lehman. And a lot of fat liberation stuff is being written by women. And this is from a man's perspective. So this is a different type take and angle. It's important to remember that with all of these things, including fat liberation, gender and race and all kinds of other factors are all intertwined and have interplay. The first book I mentioned is Poverty by America by Michael Desmond. And he's got another one called Evicted that's just out, also good. Another book is Debt by David Graeber, Debt, the First 5,000 Years. And Behind the Beautiful Forevers by Catherine Boo, which is an interesting look at a poverty-stricken undercity in India and all the complicated factors that are involved in that setting. Books on prejudices toward the uneducated, or what I've heard called educationism in doing a little research. Uneducated, a memoir of flunking out, falling apart, and finding my worth by Christopher Zara. Well-known book by this point, Hillbilly Elegy, a memoir of a family and culture in crisis by J.D. Vance. I'm not sure all of Vance's politics, but I found this a really interesting book to read. And The Teenage Liberation Handbook, How to Quit School and Get a Real Life and Education by Grace Llewellyn, which is a book on unschooling, not homeschooling, but unschooling, and taking a different look at education, what it means to be educated and get an education and educate yourself. Here are some online resources, including a couple quizzes, so you can get a sense of what your attitudes might be that you may not be aware of regarding these things. A few other things I would like to recommend, you can find these online. One is a fat shaming test, which helps you find out a little bit more about your attitudes towards fat people, fat liberation, anti-fat bias, sizeism. It's by IDR Labs and seemed to be a reputable source, and I took it and I thought it was worth sharing. Another resource is a quiz on poverty and what you might know or not know about poverty in the United States of America. I also took this quiz. I found it to be interesting, and I think it's a valid tool to help you start your thinking or dive into your thinking or re-examine your thinking on this topic. I couldn't find a type of quiz or evaluation tool I liked fairly quickly in my research on our prejudices toward the uneducated, but I did come across this article from the BBC about the various different types of judgments that hold us back, and these include things with the education system and what we consider to be educated. I hope you find these all useful. As always, I'd love to know how you did with this challenge and what you thought about it. So leave me a comment, be in touch, and good luck with the challenge. Until next time, go in peace. If you enjoyed this month's spiritual challenge video, please like this video and share it with others. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, and please leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you think about this month's spiritual challenge. Check out my website and blog at tonylorenzen.com for even more resources that will open your mind, touch your heart, and inspire your spirit.